The asteroid belt around Kepler for 42 had been humanity's most profitable mining operation for over 3 decades. What the mining corporations hadn't told their workers was that they weren't the first species to discover the rich veins of trilithium or buried deep within the floating rocks. The first sign of trouble came during the night shift. Supervisor Maria Santos was reviewing production reports in the command module of Mining Station Delta 7 when the proximity alarms began to wail. Her coffee mug, filled with the synthetic brew that kept the miners going through their 18-hour shifts, slipped from her fingers as the station shuddered under an impact that should have been impossible. What the hell was that? Santos barked into her communicator, her weathered face illuminated by the red emergency lighting that had kicked in automatically. Tommy Chin, barely 19 and working his first year in the belt, responded from the sensor station. His voice cracked with nervous energy. "Ma'am, we're showing multiple contacts approaching from the outer rim. They're big, ma'am. Bigger than anything in our shipping manifests." Santos felt her stomach drop. In 30 years of mining operations, nothing moved in the belt without corporate approval. Every supply ship, every personnel transport, every salvage operation was logged and tracked down to the minute. These contacts weren't supposed to exist. "Give me a visual, Chin." The main display flickered to life, showing the vast expanse of the asteroid field stretching out in all directions. At first, Santos saw nothing but the familiar sight of tumbling rocks and the distant glints of other mining stations. Then she saw them. Ships. Massive, angular vessels that seemed to absorb the light around them rather than reflect it. Their hulls were covered in what looked like geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly, as if they were shifting and changing even as she watched. "Mother of God," Santos whispered. Before she could react further, the communications array crackled to life. The voice that emerged was human, but distorted by what sounded like extreme pain and electronic interference. "This is Captain Rodriguez of Mining Station Alpha 3. We are under attack. Repeat, we are under attack. Unknown hostiles have breached our hull. There." Jesus Christ, what are these things? "They're not human. I repeat, they are not human." The transmission cut to static. Santos grabbed her communicator. "All stations, this is Delta 7 Command. We have a code black situation. Unknown hostiles in the belt. All personnel to emergency stations. This is not a drill." As if in response to her words, the nearest alien vessel fired. A beam of coherent energy, purple and writhing like liquid lightning, lanced out and struck Mining Station Beta 2. The entire structure, home to over 200 miners and their families, simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there, the next there was only expanding debris and the screams echoing over the emergency frequencies. "All stations, scatter pattern," Santos ordered, her training taking over despite the shock. "Use the asteroids for cover. Make yourselves hard targets." But as the alien ships moved deeper into the belt, it became clear that hiding wasn't going to be enough. These weren't raiders looking for easy targets. They moved with purpose, systematically destroying every human installation they encountered. In the lower levels of Delta 7, Shift Foreman Jake Morrison was trying to evacuate the deep miners when the station shook again. Morrison was a mountain of a man, his body scarred by decades of work in the dangerous inner shafts. He'd survived cave-ins, equipment failures, and toxic gas leaks. But nothing had prepared him for this. "Move it, people," he shouted to the miners streaming past him toward the emergency shuttles. "Whatever's happening up there, we need to get clear of this rock." Among the evacuees was Dr. Sarah Kim, the station's chief geologist. Unlike the rough-and-tumble miners around her, Kim was small and bookish, more comfortable with rock samples than emergency evacuations. But her mind was racing as she processed what she'd seen on the geological surveys. "Jake," she called out, grabbing Morrison's massive arm. "Jake, I need to tell you something about these asteroids. Something important." Morrison barely glanced at her, still focused on getting his people to safety. "Doc, whatever it is, it can wait. We need to." "No." Kim's voice cut through the chaos with surprising authority. "The trilithium deposits. They're not natural. The crystalline structure, the way they're distributed through the belt. Someone put them here. Someone seeded these asteroids." Morrison stopped dead, the implications hitting him like a physical blow. "You're saying we've been mining alien property?" Before Kim could answer, an explosion rocked the station. Emergency bulkheads slammed shut, cutting them off from the main evacuation routes. The lights flickered and died, leaving them in darkness broken only by the pale blue glow of emergency strips. Meanwhile, in the command module, Santos was coordinating what was left of the human response. The alien ships had destroyed 6 stations in as many minutes, their weapons cutting through military-grade shielding like it was tissue paper. But Santos noticed something in their attack pattern. Chin, pull up the mining survey data. Show me the trilithium concentration maps. The young operator's fingers flew over his console. Here, ma'am. But why? Look at the attack pattern, Santos interrupted, pointing to the tactical display. They're not hitting us randomly. They're targeting the richest deposits first. As if to confirm her theory, one of the alien vessels moved toward a small mining platform that the humans had largely ignored due to its low trilithium content. Instead of destroying it, the ship simply passed by, its weapons remaining silent. They want the trilithium, Santos realized. This isn't just an attack. It's a reclamation. The revelation didn't make their situation any less desperate, but it gave Santos an idea. If the aliens wanted the trilithium, maybe she could use that against them. Chin, can you access the mining charges from here? The young man nodded, confusion clear on his face. Yes, ma'am, but the safety protocols. Override them. All of them. I want every trilithium deposit in this belt rig to blow. Chin's eyes widened. Ma'am, that much explosive force. It'll destroy everything. The stations, the ships, everything. Santos looked out at the alien vessels, now systematically harvesting trilithium from the asteroids they'd cleared of human presence. Better than letting them have it. But as Chin worked to override the safety systems, a new problem emerged. The mining charges were designed to break apart asteroids gradually, not to create the kind of massive explosion Santos was planning. They would need someone to manually recalibrate each charge, someone who understood the delicate balance of explosive force and trilithium resonance. Someone like Jake Morrison. Deep in the sealed section of Delta 7, Morrison and Kim were making their own desperate plans. The station's life support was failing, and their only chance was to reach one of the maintenance airlocks and make a run for the emergency shuttles. Dr. Kim, Morrison said as they crawled through a damaged ventilation shaft, tell me more about this trilithium. If it's not natural, where did it come from? Kim paused, her scientific mind working even in their desperate situation. The distribution pattern suggests it was deliberately seeded throughout the belt, probably millions of years ago. The aliens, they must have been using this system as some kind of long-term storage facility. Morrison grunted as he forced open a damaged access panel. Storage for what? It's just ore. That's what we thought, Kim replied. But trilithium has unique quantum properties. In high concentrations, it can store massive amounts of energy in a stable form. We've been mining what amounts to an alien battery bank. The implications were staggering. Humanity hadn't just stumbled upon valuable ore. They'd been strip mining an alien civilization's strategic energy reserves. As they finally reached the maintenance airlock, Morrison's communicator crackled to life. Santos' voice, distorted by interference but still recognizable, came through. Morrison, are you there? I need you to do something, and you're not going to like it. Morrison activated his transmitter. I'm here, boss. What do you need? I need you to rig the mining charges for a synchronized detonation. All of them. Every trilithium deposit in the belt. Morrison was quiet for a long moment. Boss, you know what that'll do. The chain reaction will take out everything in a 50-kilometer radius. Including us. I know, Jake. But it's the only way to deny them what they came for. As Morrison considered Santos' request, Dr. Kim grabbed his arm. Wait, she said urgently. There might be another way. Hey there. I hope you're enjoying this intense battle for humanity's survival in the asteroid belt. If you're loving this story of human courage against impossible odds, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us bring you more amazing HFY content. Now, let's see what Dr. Kim has discovered that might change everything. The quantum resonance frequency, Kim explained rapidly. If we can modulate the trilithium's energy output instead of just destroying it, we might be able to create a feedback loop in the aliens' collection systems. Morrison frowned. In English, document. We turn their own technology against them. Instead of giving them energy, we give them a massive power surge that overloads their systems. Santos' voice crackled over the communicator. Can it work? Kim was already pulling up schematics on her portable scanner. It's theoretically possible, but we need to access the main trilithium processing plant on Alpha Station. Alpha Station was the first one hit, Morrison pointed out grimly. Not destroyed, Kim corrected. I monitored the attack. They disabled it, but the structure is still intact. They wanted the processing equipment intact so they could use it. Santos made the decision that would define the next phase of the battle. Morrison, take Dr. Kim and get to Alpha Station. Chin and I will coordinate from here and try to keep the aliens busy. Morrison looked at the small geologist beside him. Doc, you sure about this plan of yours? Kim met his gaze steadily. No, but it's better than rolling over and dying. The journey to Alpha Station was a nightmare of dodging alien patrols and navigating through debris fields that had once been thriving mining platforms. Morrison piloted their maintenance pod with the skill of someone who'd spent his entire adult life navigating the treacherous asteroid belt, while Kim worked frantically to refine her theoretical sabotage into a practical plan. As they approached Alpha Station, they could see alien ships attached to its hull like parasites, their strange geometric patterns pulsing with an eerie light. The station itself showed signs of damage, but its main structure remained intact. There, Kim pointed to a maintenance hatch near the processing plant. We can get in through the secondary airlock. Morrison maneuvered their pod carefully, using the bulk of a nearby asteroid to mask their approach. The alien ships seemed focused on their harvesting operations, their attention directed inward toward the station's trilithium reserves. Inside Alpha Station, the signs of battle were everywhere. Blast marks scarred the walls, and the air was thick with the acrid smell of burned electronics and something else, something organic and wrong that made Morrison's stomach turn. What is that smell? He muttered, covering his nose with his sleeve. Kim was studying readings on her scanner. I'm detecting traces of complex hydrocarbons and nitrogen compounds. I think it's them. The aliens. They have a completely different biochemistry. As they made their way toward the processing plant, they began to encounter evidence of the aliens themselves. Strange, viscous substances that might have been blood covered some surfaces, and there were marks on the walls that looked like they'd been made by claws or some other natural weapon. But it was when they reached the main processing chamber that they got their first clear look at their enemies. The aliens were unlike anything in human experience or imagination. They stood roughly 3 meters tall, but their proportions were all wrong. Their torsos were elongated and segmented like insects, but they moved with a fluid grace that suggested liquid rather than solid matter. Most disturbing were their heads, or what Morrison assumed were heads. They were crystalline structures that pulsed with the same geometric patterns as their ships, and within those crystal matrices, something like thought seemed to flicker and dance. Jesus, Morrison breathed. One of the creatures turned toward them, and Morrison felt something like mental pressure, as if the alien was trying to communicate directly with his brain. Images flashed through his mind: vast stellar engineering projects, energy harvesting on an unimaginable scale, and a desperate flight from some cosmic catastrophe that had destroyed the aliens' home system eons ago. Dr. Kim was experiencing the same mental contact, but her scientific training allowed her to process it more analytically. They're not invaders, she whispered in amazement. They're refugees. The trilithium deposits, they were emergency supplies hidden throughout the galaxy before their civilization fell. The alien's mental voice, when it came, was like the sound of crystal chimes mixed with digital static. You have consumed our sustenance. Your species will cease this theft. Morrison found his voice. We didn't know. We had no idea it belonged to anyone. Ignorance does not absolve. The energy stores were placed here for our survival. You have taken what was not yours to take. Kim stepped forward, her mind racing with possibilities. What if we could help you? What if there was another way? The alien's crystalline head tilted, and Morrison felt a flicker of something that might have been curiosity. Explain. The trilithium you stored here, Kim said, her words coming faster as her excitement grew. It's not just energy storage. It's a quantum battery. But we've learned things about quantum mechanics that you might not know. We could help you extract more energy from what's left, maybe even help you synthesize more. Morrison stared at her. Doc, what are you doing? Trying to save both our species, Kim replied without taking her eyes off the alien. The creature was silent for a long moment, and Morrison could feel something like consultation happening, as if it was communicating with others of its kind through some means he couldn't detect. Finally, it spoke again. Your proposal has merit, but trust must be established. Your species has proven capable of deception and violence. Morrison felt a surge of anger. We're not the ones who started shooting first. You were stealing our survival. We responded as any threatened species would. Kim held up her hands. Both sides made mistakes. The question is, do we keep making them? Or do we try to find a solution that works for everyone? What followed was a tense negotiation conducted partially through spoken words and partially through direct mental contact. The aliens, who called themselves the Vethtar, had indeed been fleeing the destruction of their home system when they established the trilithium caches throughout this region of space. They had been in deep hibernation for millennia, waiting for their automated systems to signal that the energy stores were ready for harvest. Humanity's mining operations had triggered those signals decades ahead of schedule, awakening the Vethtar to find their carefully planned resources being consumed by what they perceived as primitive scavengers. But as Dr. Kim outlined her understanding of quantum mechanics and energy manipulation, the Vethtar began to see possibilities they hadn't considered. Human technology, while primitive by their standards, approached the problem from a completely different angle. The combination of Vethtar energy science and human quantum theory could potentially unlock trilithium's full potential. Morrison, meanwhile, was thinking about the immediate practical problems. Even if we can work together, there are still human and Vethtar fleets shooting at each other out there. The Vethtar representative, Kim, had started thinking of it as the ambassador, pulsed with what might have been acknowledgement. This is true. Combat must cease before cooperation can begin. Kim activated her communicator. Santos, are you there? Santos' voice came through clearly for the first time in hours. Kim, thank God. We thought you were dead. The alien ships have been systematically destroying every installation in the belt. They're not trying to destroy us, Kim explained quickly. They're trying to recover stolen property. Property they need to survive. Morrison took over the communication. Boss, we've got a situation here that's bigger than we thought. These aliens, they're not conquerors. They're refugees. And Dr. Kim thinks we might be able to help each other. The silence on the other end of the communication stretched for long seconds. When Santos finally responded, her voice was heavy with exhaustion. Are you telling me we've been fighting a war over a misunderstanding? That's exactly what I'm telling you, Morrison replied. The next few hours were the most delicate in human history. With Dr. Kim serving as translator and Morrison as human representative, they worked to establish a ceasefire between the remaining human survivors and the Vethtar fleet. The process was complicated by the fact that not all humans were willing to trust the aliens who had just destroyed 6 mining stations and killed hundreds of people. Similarly, many Vethtar saw humanity as little more than thieves who had stolen their people's future. But desperation makes strange allies. The human survivors were vastly outgunned and facing extinction. The Vethtar, meanwhile, had awakened to find their carefully hoarded energy reserves nearly depleted and no immediate prospect of finding alternative sources. Dr. Kim's proposal offered hope to both sides. By combining human quantum manipulation techniques with Vethtar energy science, they could potentially extract several times more energy from the remaining trilithium deposits. More importantly, they could develop techniques for synthesizing trilithium artificially, providing a renewable energy source for both civilizations. The demonstration took place on the wreckage of Mining Station Beta 2. Using portable equipment hastily assembled from human mining gear and Vethtar energy collectors, Kim and a team of Vethtar scientists successfully increased the energy output of a small trilithium sample by 400%. The success of the experiment marked the beginning of an unprecedented alliance between two species that had nearly destroyed each other over a fundamental misunderstanding. But the road ahead would not be easy. The human survivors faced the task of returning to Earth with news that would fundamentally change humanity's understanding of its place in the universe. The discovery that they shared the galaxy with other intelligent species, and that they had inadvertently been strip mining those species' emergency supplies, would send shockwaves through human civilization. For the Vethtar, the challenge was equally daunting. They had to overcome millions of years of evolutionary conditioning that saw other species as either threats or resources to be managed. Learning to work as equals with beings they had initially dismissed as primitive scavengers would require a fundamental shift in their worldview. 6 months after the Battle of Kepler 442, the first joint human Vethtar research station was established in the asteroid belt. Maria Santos, now serving as the human administrator for the joint project, stood in the observation deck watching human miners work alongside Vethtar energy engineers to construct a revolutionary new type of trilithium synthesis plant. Hard to believe, isn't it? Jake Morrison said, joining her at the viewport. The big foreman had adapted to working with the Vethtar better than most, his practical nature allowing him to focus on the work rather than the strangeness of his new colleagues. Santos nodded. 6 months ago, we were trying to kill each other. Now we're building the future together. Dr. Kim approached them, her arms full of data tablets and her eyes bright with excitement. The latest synthesis tests are exceeding all projections. At this rate, we'll be able to provide enough energy for both human expansion and Vethtar reconstruction efforts. Through the viewport, they could see one of the Vethtar ships, no longer the threatening harbinger of destruction it had once seemed, but a partner in an unprecedented interstellar alliance. Its crystalline hull patterns pulsed in what Kim had learned was the Vethtar equivalent of contentment. The ambassador materialized beside them, its form shimmering into visibility through some technology Santos was still learning to understand. Even after months of contact, the direct mental communication still felt strange, but she was getting used to it. The synthesis plant approaches completion, the ambassador communicated. Our projections indicate full operational status within 7 solar cycles. And the expansion plans? Santos asked aloud, still more comfortable with spoken words than mental communication. Proceeding as discussed, 3 additional systems have been identified for joint development. Your species' adaptability combined with our energy sciences will make settlement feasible on worlds previously considered uninhabitable. Morrison grinned. From miners to galactic pioneers. Not bad for a bunch of asteroid rats. As if in response to his words, a new contact appeared on the station's sensors. Santos checked the identification signal and smiled. That'll be the first wave of colonists from Earth. Scientists, engineers, and yes, more miners. But these weren't the same kind of miners who had been working the belt before the contact with the Vethtar. This new generation came equipped with hybrid human Vethtar technology and a completely different understanding of their role in the galaxy. They were no longer just extracting resources from dead rocks in space. They were partners in the greatest collaboration in human history, working to build a future that neither species could have achieved alone. Dr. Kim looked up from her data tablets, a smile spreading across her face. You know what the best part is? This is just the beginning. The Vethtar have indicated there are other species out there, other civilizations that face the same cosmic disasters they did. If we can prove that cooperation works, that different species can work together instead of competing for resources, we could be looking at a galactic alliance, Santos finished. Built on cooperation instead of conquest. Morrison chuckled. From a mining dispute to galactic diplomacy. I've got to admit, Doc, you scientists sure know how to complicate things. Kim laughed. Complex problems require complex solutions, Jake. But sometimes the most complex solution is also the most beautiful one. As the human colonist ships approached the station, their holds full of people ready to begin new lives among the asteroids, Santos felt a sense of pride she'd never experienced before. They had faced the unknown and not only survived but thrived. Humanity had proven once again that its greatest strength wasn't its weapons or its technology, but its ability to adapt, to find common ground even with beings as alien as the Vethtar, and to turn potential enemies into allies. The stars stretched out before them, no longer a frontier to be conquered but a community to be joined. And at the heart of it all, in a converted mining station orbiting a handful of asteroids, 2 species that had once tried to destroy each other now worked side by side, building something neither could have imagined alone. The age of humanity's isolation was over. The age of cooperation had begun. And it all started with a group of miners who refused to give up, a scientist who saw possibilities where others saw only problems, and the recognition that sometimes the best way to win a war is to realize you don't need to fight it at all. Thanks for joining us on this incredible journey from the asteroid belt to the stars. If you enjoyed this story of human ingenuity and interstellar cooperation, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more amazing HFY content. What did you think of the twist that turned enemies into allies? Let me know in the comments below. And if you want to see more stories like this, check out our complete HFY playlist. Until next time, keep exploring the stars.